Vladimir Putin embarrassed himself in front of the whole world during the preparations for the victory parade in Moscow. Russians have shown footage for the first time from inside the completely burned out oil refinery in Tuapse, and just last night, Ukrainian drones struck the Russian port of Primorsk on the Baltic Sea again. It is known that during this drone attack, the Ukrainian defense forces hit a Karakurt missile ship, a patrol boat, and a tanker from the Shadow Fleet. In addition to this, the Institute for the Study of War has calculated that in April, Russian troops suffered net territorial losses in the war with Ukraine. And this happened for the first time since the Ukrainian armed forces invaded the Kursk region in August 2024. And against this backdrop, footage allegedly from Red Square appeared online today, where Russians have stretched an anti-drone net to protect the upcoming Victory Day parade on May 9 from drone attacks. But is this a fake? Let's figure it out now. My name is Pechii. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, please subscribe to this channel, like this episode, and leave any comment under this video. In addition, subscribe to my Telegram channel Pechii News. The link is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. So, let me start right away with the news about the victory parade on May 9th in Moscow this year. As you know, the victory parade in Moscow will be held without military equipment for the first time in 19 years. The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation has officially confirmed. At this year's victory parade on Red Square, there will be no column of military equipment, no aircraft in the sky, and no cadets from Suvorov, Nakhimov schools or cadet corps. There will only be a miserable column of marching occupiers, that's all. And it's far from certain that Vladimir Putin himself will drag his carcass onto Red Square. And against the backdrop of such news, Ukrainian and Russian Telegram channels on May 3 published a photo showing an anti-drone net stretched over Red Square in Moscow. The photo illustrated Moscow's preparations for the May 9th parade. Well, obviously such news amused Ukrainians, of course, since it shows the fear that has settled in the minds of Russians. But I urge you to use common sense. This photo is fake. One of the first to publish this photo of Red Square was Serhiy Sternenko, an advisor to the Ukrainian Minister of Defense. And the image shows that anti-drone nets, which are actually used at the front, were supposedly stretched over Red Square. Well, this photo was clearly generated by artificial intelligence. There are several mistakes in the image that point to this. Well, for example, in this photo, for some reason, Lenin's mausoleum is missing, and the square itself looks a bit different from how it actually is in reality. For example, instead of the historical museum building, St. Basil's Cathedral is shown, even though in reality it's located at the opposite end of the square. And besides, Red Square has actually been closed for several days already. I think since April 29th, so there simply can't be any people walking there. But I understand making fun of the wild, unwashed Russians is almost sacred, but the main thing here is not to get carried away. Nevertheless, Vladimir Putin's situation in this war is getting worse and worse. Well, first of all, unique footage has appeared online, filmed from the cabin of a fire truck driving directly through the area of the Tuapse oil refinery after a series of powerful drone attacks. This video clearly shows that one of the largest enterprises in the industry in southern Russia has been virtually turned into ruins. And now we will watch this video, but before that I want to point out that one of the officials from this region where the city of Tuapse is located had started claiming the day before that all of this is fake. Why do you think the oil refinery is on fire? The oil storage facilities are burning, the port is burning? He says no, that's crafty Ukraine. The people of Tuapse are supposedly attaching tanks of fuel oil to drones, and then the drone crashes, the fuel oil spills and catches fire. And that's why you can see these black clouds of smoke over the city. But no oil refinery is burning, it's these fuel oil tanks that are on fire. And you see, this official just takes Russians, this feral people, for complete idiots, because he simply says, no, what you see with your own eyes isn't really happening. It's just drones with fuel oil burning, that's all. Now let's watch a video once again, filmed from a fire truck inside the Tuapse oil refinery.
There was damage and a spill of product from tank number 3, which caused the flammable oil to spill onto the road, and several cars and control systems were damaged.
We have it under control now.
Zakrilki oil refinery flaps. Zakrilki oil refinery.
Well, as you can see, the footage shows an apocalyptic scene. Instead of high-tech primary oil processing equipment, you can see only charred metal frames and piles of twisted iron. A fire truck also drives past dozens of tanks that have turned into crushed tin cans like this. And according to the analysis, more than 50% of the fuel storage capacity has been completely destroyed by fire, and the rest has been damaged. The factory grounds are covered with a thick layer of soot and foam. The effects of the oil rain are visible everywhere, which affected not only the industrial zone but also the residential areas of Tuapse. As a result, at the moment, the company's production cycle is completely paralyzed. Experts assess the damage as irreparable in the short term. And according to preliminary forecasts, it may take years to fully restore or at least partially restore the plant's operations. Taking into account the time required, the complexity of the equipment, and sanctions restrictions on imported components. And on May 3rd, another fire broke out at the Baltic port of Primorsk as a result of a massive drone attack. And this attack is no accident. The oil handling capacity of the port of Primorsk is about 1 million barrels of oil per day and about 300,000 barrels of diesel fuel per day, making it a key transshipment point for the main Russian grade of oil, Urals, and low-sulfur diesel fuel. Therefore, it is already obvious that Ukraine will now target this port as well, just like the port in Tuapse. At the same time, during the drone attack on the port of Primorsk, Ukrainian defense forces struck a Karakurt missile ship, a patrol boat, and a tanker from the Shadow Fleet. This was a joint operation by the Security Service of Ukraine, the Unmanned Systems Forces, Special Operations Forces, the Main Intelligence Directorate, and Ukrainian border guards. A patrol boat and another tanker from the oil fleet were also hit. The port infrastructure was seriously damaged as well, of the Russian oil port. This was reported by the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. Along with the port, Ukraine's attack struck a tanker from the Shadow Fleet. РФ вблизи входа в порт Novorossiysk. This was a joint operation of the main. Our soldiers continue to enforce sanctions against Russia's Shadow Fleet. They struck 2 such vessels in the waters at the entrance to the port of Novorossiysk. These tankers were actively used for transporting oil. Now they won't be. Ukrainian long-range capabilities will continue to develop comprehensively at sea, in the air, and on land. Vladimir Putin approaches the shameful victory parade on Red Square on May 9 with impressive results at the front. In April, Russian troops suffered net territorial losses in the war with Ukraine, losing control over 116 square kilometers. According to the American Institute for the Study of War, this happened for the first time since the Ukrainian armed forces invaded Russia's Kursk region in August 2024. At the same time, the pace of the Russian army's offensive continues to decline. If at the beginning of 2025 they were advancing an average of 9.76 square kilometers per day, then in the first 4 months of 2026 the figure was 2.9 square kilometers. In addition, the institute explains the slowdown in the Russian offensive by Ukrainian ground counterattacks and medium-range strikes, which include the active use of drones. In addition, due to the loss of the ability to use Starlink terminals on Ukrainian territory and the blocking of Telegram, the Russian army's problems with command and communication have worsened. But here the Russians resorted to a trick, creating a beautiful picture. Next, I'll quote the Institute for the Study of War. Since the fall of 2025, Russian troops have actively started using the tactic of infiltrating small groups into gray zones without fully capturing them. The Russian Ministry of Defense uses such operations to create the appearance of advances on all fronts and to report successes to the Kremlin. In practice, however, many of these zones remain disputed and are under constant fire from both sides. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. Additionally, if you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so with any donation or a paid channel membership using the links and details in the description of this video. I would be grateful for any support you can give. Thank you. You can also use the QR code on your screens. This is the easiest and most convenient way to support the YouTube channel. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.